Good morning, Jello, and good morning to all Joy Nostalg family members today. Allow me to share with you, okay, one of the most important values, and I think one of the most relevant, yeah, at this point in time. So, can you just allow me to screen share? Okay. So this morning, allow me to share with you some of my thoughts. Okay, some of my thoughts um, and inspiration in my lifetime. I guess we all. I think it's the culture of kindness is not stranger to is not a stranger to us. And in fact, I think all of us possess this in a different context. But how do we now transform these valuable values inputted, all throughout our family life? Because we all have that, in a series of growing up, lessons in life. How do we now transform this culture of kindness in our workplace? Okay, so this morning, allow me to just share with you, sit back, relax, and if you haven't had any breakfast yet, I probably invite you to get a cup of coffee and your breakfast, and as we sit down and talk. This morning's conversation is about the transformative culture of kindness that very timely during this time of the pandemic. We're on our second year right now. So let's talk about how this culture of kindness can be used as a transformative tool to further enhance our well-being, our co-employees' well-being, and the workplace, and the people that we serve. Okay? Now, I'll invite you to watch a very brief video. Short video is very inspirational because it teaches us or gives us a moment to reflect. A moment to reflect on the things that goes on around us today. The pandemic is ongoing. The economic slump is, continuously spiraling. Hopefully there will be a moment of going up. But through it all, the work from home scheme, the demand on supervising our children, our family members, all throughout in the context of online learning, the COVID infected family members, death of loved ones, all of this compounding to us. And we asked ourselves and sit back, what really matters in our life? What really is most important in our life? What is it that at the end of the day, given all these challenges in life, what matters most? Okay. And this morning, let us journey and try to recall and try to sit back and see what are those things that really matters in our life. At the end of the day, if you look at the man in the video, it is the emotion that you receive. The acts of kindness towards others may not benefit you in the context of becoming rich, may not benefit you in becoming a popular person. But at the end of the day, it's the ripple of love and kindness you give to others that eventually effect into a wider change. When we define kindness, many definitions, and if you look at the definitions, depending on what perspective you're looking at. But most often when we define kindness, I like this definition, that sincere and voluntary use of one's time. Okay, and that is valuable. Our time, given this situation right now, is valuable, but it is the sincere and voluntary, meaning to say nobody forced us. We're not demanded by anybody, but it's an outright feeling of wanting to be of service, of our time, our talent, resources to better the lives of others, one's own life in the world through genuine acts. Right now in our workplace, we seldom see each other. Like in our case, everything is virtual. Okay. And sometimes, people struggle, even some are techie, some are not, some may have good connectivity, some may not, no? And there are moments wherein it becomes very, very challenging for us to function. Where does kindness sits in this context? How do we now use this um, to be one of the most powerful tool that we can ever use to maintain not only serving each other, but to maintain mental health well-being, you know? Kindness has been said, okay, to be a behavior. This is subjective. People look at it, and behavior subjectively perceived by the recipient. Each one of us define kindness in very different ways, tama? And it's very subjective based on our experience, no, the way we grew up, the things that we have experienced from others as well. Now, the nature of this subjective perception, sabi natin, is defining. Yan. Yung tinatawag nating emotional bank account. Okay? Each one of us have an emotional bank account. What is an emotional bank account? This is wherein we evaluate what would make us happy, what would make us feel good, no? What would make our day right, no? So this emotional bank account, if it's dry, okay, it's empty, no? Tendency is we feel lonely, we feel very agitated, we sometimes don't want to cooperate, not because we don't want to cooperate, but sometimes, alam mo, yung mabigat yung feeling na parang walang push factor. Right? So our emotional bank account is very important. Di ba? Synonymous to our financial bank account. Di ba? If on a rainy day, right now, you were very diligent in saving bits and pieces, anything that you could save out of your salary. These trying times may be really, fearful and anxious for you because we don't really know the economy. We hope and pray the economy would be better. But if there's a little money that you have set aside, okay, there is a feeling of security. Okay, there's a feeling of stability. Okay, and there's a feeling of I am anxious, but I am not fearful. Okay, I may be afraid a bit, konti lang, but then there is something na may fallback ka. Our emotional bank account is similar to that. If we have not received any kindness, if we have not given out any form of kindness, this emotional bank account, di ba parang withdrawal? Magwi-withdraw ka, give ka ng give, okay din yan. But if nothing comes back to you, di ba, pag bank book mo, magzi-zero balance ka. And this is where emotional burnout comes in. That, you've given everything that you've got, and that at the end of the day, you feel that, oops, I'm really, really tired. And a lot of people experience that. Why? Because we're not paying attention to the emotional bank account. Now, in a group setting, in a work setting, this could easily be neglected. Why? Because totoo naman, maraming challenges ngayon. And we are all swimming and learning to survive. But being kind to one another, a word of kindness, a gesture of kindness, ensures that your emotional bank account slowly but surely builds up. So if you ask yourself today, I'd like you to ask yourself right now, right here, right now, how is my emotional bank account? Am I on a nearly zero emotional bank account, which means to say it's an alert, it might be giving now of kindness towards others, or maybe a colleague of yours might need a little break, a slack, an assistance, a word of encouragement, right? Now, this creates a relationship that builds trust, okay? And therefore, this trust is understanding what others value at most. For our emotional bank account to be filled up, we have to understand what is the most valuable thing. And human nature, inherent worth and dignity of human nature would always tell us, we like to be valued. We like to be affirmed. We like to be accepted and loved. It's one of the hierarchical needs, no? Above the survival needs, no? It's very important. And therefore, taking action that benefits, no, the intended beneficiary okay, would somehow create, and transform and circulate that context of um, kindness towards another. So remember, we're speaking of an emotional bank account this morning. Okay? So not only, sabi nga natin, not only the workplace, but try to do it yourself in an assessment. How are you today? Sincerely, because you're the only best person to be able to answer that. How's my emotional bank account? Am I nearing zero? Okay. So what is lacking? Okay. If I'm really good, medium, how could I increase this? And if I'm top of the ballgame of my emotional bank account, what am I doing right that I could share with others, that I could repeatedly do so that my emotional bank account would increase? Okay. Now, in kindness, there is what we call the theory of reasoned action. Okay? The theory of reasoned action, sabi natin kasi kindness is act of random. But there's a theory of reasoned action by Fishman and Aston in 2010 that they wrote about it. And they say that, behaviors are the deliberate and spontaneous actions taken as the product of kindness. So therefore, they were able to say that, any form of behavior, no, is a deliberate. Okay, it's deliberate, it's spontaneous. You don't have to recall, the times you did and where was giving kindness towards others. It doesn't have to be a 30 minutes contemplation of should I do this, should I do that. Have helped the lady who's very difficult. Bringing up the grocery bag. Should I stand because this pregnant woman is um doesn't have a space to sit down, and because of the quarantine situation, very limited seating capacity. Should I just go down and allow her to go? You don't need to be a rocket scientist to figure out the spontaneity, okay, of the acts of kindness. So there is a behavior that is deliberate and very spontaneous, okay, as a byproduct of kindness. Okay? Resulta ito ng pagiging mabuti at mabait sa ating kapwa. Alright? Now, if you look at the reasoned action model, they say that there are certain beliefs a person have. So right now, our belief, our understanding, our definition of kindness will go back, totoo yan, we'll go back to our own experiential knowledge. No? When we were growing up, di ba? How did we witness this? Okay, did we not just only hear about it, but did we actually witness this? So there are beliefs, that are already embedded, okay, that is seen in your current behavior, the norms that you follow, and the certain control that you are able to apply, emotional regulation. There are people, I know of people, because sometimes my temper gets the better of me. Okay, but I have friends, even under the most stressful circumstances, at galit na galit ka na adit ka na. Sometimes they're really, really angry about certain stuff. And then they would still calmly tell you, okay, just sit down, let's talk about this, think about it. The ability to control, and not just unleash the power of anger is one of the things that is in our belief system, in the things that we actually believe in. The attitude comes after, wherein those belief systems are transformed into actions, okay? And our perceived selected norms, okay? So there are many norms society, our family, taught to us. But as we grow up, based from experience, based from our own understanding, we develop what are the norms that becomes applicable to our life. Yan. So selective yan. Okay? And we also now learn to select what are those perceived behavioral control that we can apply in our lifetime. Because sometimes, kindness can come in so many ways. Sometimes, may sinabi yung isang ka-office mate mo that doesn't fit well with you, but you're in a very gloomy day, na wala namang kakwenta-kwenta yung sinasabi mo. Okay? Well, it's a freedom of expression you have, but being able to control no? And choose the words that you say, but conveying the meaning of wanting, what you want to say is a totally different matter. And this is where your perceived behavioral control comes in. All you wanted to say is that that idea doesn't seem to be fitting. No? So instead of saying, wala mang kwenta yan, pagsasayang lang tayo ng oras kung yan ang pag-uusapan natin. Simply say that, well, that's a good idea, but it doesn't seem to fit in this particular context. So we might probably want to explore or try to discuss further what could be done. That way, the person gets an honest to goodness feedback. And that is kindness also. Kasi minsan may kultura kasi tayo na we don't want to be harsh, no? But then, to the detriment of the person on the other side of the spectrum. Why? Kasi kala niya, puro brilliant ideas yung sinasabi niya, minsan off. And if nobody is kind enough, to tell the person, sandali lang na go off tangent. You know what I'm saying? What you're saying is off tangent. It might be a good idea in other areas, but it's not applicable in this time. Then it's a learning curve for that person as well. And that is already kindness to the other person, because instead of allowing the person to think, every ganito, ini-insist, and then hindi naman sila nag-react sa kabilang meeting, but all of a sudden now, why are you reacting this way? It becomes now a conflicting message. But if one of the things that we do, the intentionality of the behavior, meaning to say, we always go on the intent, the translation of those beliefs, the values, the perceived norms that we have into specific intention reflected in action. Okay? So it's easier said than done, kasi minsan may mga moments kasi na very stressful. And there are times that in our situation right now, work can be demanding, family life could be demanding. Minsan nga, you ask yourself, saan ko pa isisingit yung sinasabing self-care? Right? But I think one of the things that we must not forget, that as we emphasize kindness to others, we must also emphasize kindness to ourselves. Learning to say no when everything. Ako nung araw, I have a very difficult time saying no, because our culture, di ba, when you were parang brought up in yun ang normative belief, na when people ask for help, you have to oblige, because if specifically you have the capacity to provide the services or the help, even personal aspect, the help that you can do. But there are moments in times that sometimes you're tired, and you have a very long week, and sometimes listening to another conversation again might be beneficial to the other person, but it's detrimental to you. So what's the win-win thing today? You want to be kind, you want to accommodate, but at the same time, you're conflicted. Why? Because you yourself need to have a time off. And I think this time, the kindness towards self is being able to articulately say, would it be okay if we schedule it tomorrow or the next day so that I can talk to you? And often than not, people respond, except na lang if it's really, really a very critical matter. If you are not in a condition, then you ask the person, would it be okay if I, in our Zoom meeting now, if we can ask our other close friend, one or other close friend. So that way, there is a support system also in your place. We normally have to admit we're not superheroes. Okay? And even with the best intention, sometimes we burn. Why? Because we forget to be kind to ourselves. To be able to give to others, we have to also give it to ourselves. Remember, our emotional bank account does not only rely upon others giving us kindness, but also us giving kindness to ourselves. Okay? So the theory of reasoned action, sabi natin, in a nutshell, the cognitive aspect of how we understood these beliefs and needs, okay, that is reflected in the affective attitude on how we are able to be compassionate to others, how we define what about the duties that we own to the workplace, and also the personal responsibility, to ourselves, to our family, and then the willingness to comply. Sometimes ang hirap, there are days na why am I so overburdened? So to be kind to yourself you also have to look, how am I spending my week? How am I spending my week? How much time do I give? And bakit every deadline na lang, walang tulugan ang motto ko? Yan, okay? Parang rush ng rush ng rush. But I'm given like several weeks to do it. So it's being kind to yourself means to say that you have to also assess what are the behavioral patterns that you have that sometimes can be unkind to yourself. Okay? So these are morally valuable intention that we sort of transcend from. And ultimately, behavior comes and actually comes. So, ang sinasabi lang natin, it's easy, when we externalize kindness. Kasi inherent lahat. I don't believe that may mga taong walang kindness. Okay? We have them. Sometimes these basic values, gets to be put aside because of the so many things that challenges us on a daily basis. And sometimes we felt that, it's too much. But one of the most very intricate way of building up your emotional bank account is to introspect. Okay? Because if you are kind to yourself and you are stabilized in your emotional stability, then it will be easier to give. Kasi yun na nga, it's emptiness. How can you give kindness if you are not kind to yourself? All right? Work setting area, for example. Early parts, people would say, work from home, middle of the night, I would receive an email. It's okay, don't respond. Respond to it the next working day, okay? Unless there's a life and death situation that's very, very critical. But that should be minimized. If you are a supervisor, look into it, that there's an understanding between 8 to 5, because that is being kind to people. We are output based, yes, okay, but at the same time, we also, by being quantifying a certain work time, that's being kind to everyone. Why? Because you're helping them get back to the rhythm, the stability, the body clock system. And that is being kind to them. It may be seen upon as harsh. Ay, may ganito, ganyan, But again, that standard in terms of, continuity, gives a little sense of people wanting to helping people go back to the track. Okay. So if you apply that, all those behavioral beliefs in the theory of reason action, your expectation about the self and others, and an understanding is reflected in the behavior. The norms, the morality, good or bad, what is acceptable and not, and the control that you believe is there, that has been embedded upon us from the time we were children, experiences in school, workplace, relationship, with our peers and family members. That is compounded with the attitude. Okay, changes, transformed, in a way, because we all have our personal experiences. Each one of us have a different narrative. Okay, some might be a happy one, some might be challenging, some might be really, really sad, But all of that we come across, there are strengths, lessons we learn. As long as there's lesson you learned and aha moments for you, look at those experiences as life-changing, and apply them, now become the personal aspect, the compassion that you have. It's because at one point in time, when you were in the downside, aspect of your life, people were compassionate, and you remember how it felt, how it feels, if you're feeling that right now, to receive, compassion and kindness from others. And this becomes now a fuel, of being not an obligation, but because you have the capacity to give it, translates. Our perceived norms developed over time of what is acceptable ethically, and the duties owned, to ourselves, the family, to our workplace, the people that we serve, okay, the client system that we serve, given this pandemic. Perceived control, the confidence in taking action. Because at a certain point of time, many, many circumstances, if you are in a very stressful work situation, may mga learning curves ka nang nalaman. No? How do I now manage conflict? Okay? Alam mo, sabi nga nila, when we are studying and we're being trained to look into the realms of the psychological aspect, like sinasabi, it's not that you are glorious that many conflict comes to your life, but it's a practice moment of your skills in terms of problem solving, analytical, and that is a life skill, you know. And there are people who have managed because they kept calm, you know, being calm, and they are able to use their cognitive prowess, you know, and analytical mind because they are able to control their emotion, have focused on ways to manage conflict. And therefore, ang attitude, you know, okay, yes, that is the problem. That is our issue. That is the concern. Okay. How do we move forward? Yeah. How do we move forward? One of the things that I think the act of kindness in doing that is when people make mistakes. Honest mistake, whether that mistake was not caused by ignorance of the process, ignorance of the policy, you know, being not particular in paying attention in details. No? When a person says, I made a mistake, okay, it is a way for the person to convey. And for us, hindi nakakabawas ng pagkatao ang pag-acknowledge that we did make mistakes because we're only human. You know, lahat tayo, even our age, you know, hindi lang mga bata ang nagkakamali, even us, you know. In our 50s, 60s, 70s, no? May mga pagkakamali. But when people come to you and say, you know, I made this mistake, you know, the acknowledgement of that mistake is already a profound action of the person. And the kindness that we can give is to affirm, okay, what went wrong, what happened, okay, and ask the person, if you're given another chance again, how do you think you would change this? By asking those few questions, okay, the act of kindness towards that person has been given. And you have taught a very valuable lesson to your colleague. No? That coming up and owning up to our mistakes and, you know, the things that we have done, you know, incorrectly, is received with kindness. So that's one valuable lesson. Second, you are also helping your colleague or your supervisee or the people that you supervise, no, to try to learn from that experience and apply that in future occurrences by asking what could you have done differently to probably have a different turnout. What were the things that you missed out, and what were the things that you paid attention to? That's why you recognize the mistake, all right? And by asking a valuable question, what could you have done differently? It's a way of being able to help the person redeem, no? And again, start to build, no, on that level of confidence. What we don't want is yung emotional bashing na nagkamali na, dinikdik pa natin ng walang kamatayan. In other words, may sugat ka na, tagtad ka pa ng garlic, nilagyan mo pa ng asin at ng ano. We're right. People already acknowledge the mistake. And sometimes out of frustration, okay, sometimes out of frustrations, people do that. But then again, you have to also maneuver. And if you're angry, to be kind to yourself because you don't want to have, you know, hypertension, retrieve yourself muna. Okay, sige. I'm not in a good position right now. Sige, we'll talk in 30 minutes. That is also being kind to yourself because, you know, being angry always boils your high blood temperature, you know, that is not good for you. Your immune system drops every time the stress level is up. And who suffers? You. So in that situation, it's a win-win thing. We be kind to others. We provide that opportunity. And always yung sa amin, ano, if we're into a lot of supervising, a lot of practicum, it's a teachable moment. Yeah. So you look at the opportunity of mistakes like that, identifying what went wrong, what went well, okay? But asking the question, if you're wanting to look at it again. How would you have done it differently? So by then, you go through, no, it's like a mental process. Okay, okay. So dinidescribe niya sa'yo and you mentor, okay? That is a very good supervision. The next time it happens, I'm pretty sure that colleague, that supervisee, in case of doubt, will not have second thoughts of approaching you. Why? Because that person realized that, I lack this expertise on this ground, but I think mom or sir would understand and would be a very good source of guidance. Most often the times when people say, ay, ba't hindi mo ako tinanong? Ba't hindi ka kumonsulta? Sometimes out of fear, no, of what happens next. So creating that culture of providing, the emotional bank account, the deposit tayo of act of kindness. Okay, it's very important. Okay, now we also say that qualities of being kind, generic yan, friendly, generous. These are the qualities that people always say when a person is kind. Selfless. So selfless, not to the point of self-destruction, selfless to the point that if given an opportunity, if that would be beneficial, then you do it. Not to the point of putting yourself in a dangerous situation. Compassionate and merciful. All of the things that's being said as qualities have been reflected in those conversations earlier. When a person make mistakes or a person seems to be having difficult time in understanding the work, paulit-ulit na lang tayo. Sometimes, maraming factor. But asking what went wrong and what you did well and how you could have done things more differently would quantify, this realm. Okay? Now, kindness is more than nice. Ayan. We need to emphasize this, okay? Kindness is more than nice because it says that hindi ito niceness lang. Because when you say you're just nice, there might be a lack of sincerity and sometimes feeling mo, di ba, pag nice lang, perception of doing a minimum. Kindness is being kind because it's intentional. It's voluntary acts of kindness. Ito yung sinasabi natin, moments wherein you don't have to be a rocket scientist to take 5 one day to think whether or not you're going to do this act of kindness. Well, depends. Depends whether or not the magnitude naman is something to do with a policy in the office, and stuff like that. But other forms of kindness, the words we say, gestures that we do are intentional, voluntary. And kindness is not only done when it's easy to be kind, but when it's hardest to be. And when it's hardest to be is when we are angry, we are upset, we're overburdened, we're compounded with many, many due dates as well. Everything at home is sort of like in chaos because most of the time you spend on your online work and stuff like that. Even in the home setting, children might annoy you and then you're doing something really, really important, the tendency sometimes the octave of our voice. Not that we want to be mean, but sometimes it's because it's you're fulling to the brim already. So intentional is because you need to take care of yourself. You have to know that, when your emotional bank account, is diminishing, ika nga, then you need a time off. Then it's very important that you sit back and take a breather for a moment. Stand up, drink water, and then refrain. It's the hardest thing to do. Sometimes I struggle with it as well. To really, be angry at the same time. Raise the level of your voice, but that's being kind to yourself, not elevating your high blood pressure, not stressing yourself too much, and at the same time for the people also that you work with and the family members, because they might have a very different level of emotional bank account than yours. Okay, so that sometimes bakit pa ulit-ulit ano to, because they're in a good space. Okay, ikaw yung wala sa good space. So it's very important to know and be self-aware. Ayan. So that's very important. Kindness is a movement. In all of these things written here, sabi natin, it's a wave. It only takes one person to do an act of kindness. Di ba? Pay it forward. Di ba? Sinasabi natin. One act of kindness, kagaya ng video a while ago, one act of kindness Amanda's to the neighborhood people, no, has trickled the effect of others also being kind towards others. You know? And it's a wave. It's a wave, you know, that becomes now very contagious. Yung community pantry natin, it started out with the intent because one person, the lady who started it, no, realized that, you know, wala na tayong ayuda ngayon. So therefore, there are a lot of people who lost their jobs, jeepney drivers, tricycle driver who have not yet able to travel because they don't even have the money to put the division and buy plastics for their jeep, no? But it's an inspiration of wanting to create, you know, a small thing, konti lang. It started with a very small thing. It started with a very few things, no? At nagulat na lang over the days that came about, you know, it became bigger and bigger, and people started to duplicate, no? And everybody was like, you get what you only need, and if you have anything, and a lot of people would do, contribute, kinukuha niya yung kailangan niya, and then yung paninda niya, binibigay niya, kasi sabi niya, itong paninda ko, when I give this back, yung bibenta ko niyan, these are the things that I would buy. So other people might need it. So it's a revolution. It's a movement. You know? And in the office workplace that we have, whether it's virtual, you know, an act of kindness in terms of probably a person is struggling because the connectivity might not be good, then we should probably accommodate. And what are the things that can be done? No worries, may minutes of the meeting. We can give it to you, no? Stay on as you can, but you know, may mga workplace scenario that sometimes they struggle, you know, like school days before, but all of us are doing homeline work and study. I have 3 students, you know, and many of us working. Even if your Wi-Fi connection is at top of the game, it won't work. Okay, and how do you now extend kindness in terms of relating to your friends, no? O baka may sasabihin ka ahead of time, you can email to me. So in case na meron na ma-disrupt yung connection mo, then we can just flash it on the screen for everybody to see. No? Gestures like that, you know. People who might have family members affected by COVID, you know, and they could not produce the work that they can do, you know. An act of kindness, what can I do to help you? You know, hindi mo kinukuha lahat, but what are the things, because given the situation, it's very difficult to focus, lalo pag nasa ICU, very detrimental. So it's a movement. Baga, when you drop a pebble in the water, there's ripple. And that's what kindness does to people, you know, what it gives to people. Okay, kindness is also love. Love is kind. Yan. So what do? Diba, when we love people, we're selfless, you know, we're caring, compassionate, unconditionally. All right, and it's an act of kindness because despite the many things, no, na pagkukulang, we give a little unconditional space and say, you know, well, things could be better. How could we make it better? So we offer these kinds to Agnes, the co-workers that we have, the people that we work with. No? It's about being able to say, you know, be compassionate, you know, in terms of times wherein deadlines are there, you know, as a team. If you work as a team, di ba? Nagsastruggle siya, and then probably assess, no, what is it that you're doing? Because most of the time during work from home scheme, even yung work rhythm ng body clock is disrupted because sometimes people would say, I work better at night because everybody's asleep and the internet Wi-Fi connection is strong. So there's logic to it. So therefore, every meeting, kaya yan late ng late kasi natutulog siya 5. Meeting nyo sometimes 8, no? Little consideration, if the meeting naman can be moved, okay, can we have it like 1 o'clock in the morning unless talaga it's a do or die situation, you have to meet that early, then it would probably accommodate, so that people naman whose work situation, sometimes it's situational, their work situation can be considered in terms of planning, specifically. And then no weekend sana. Leave the Saturdays and Sundays. Ako ang normally sabi ko, Saturday is my day. It's me time, what I need to do for myself. Okay, so anything under the sun. So it's a free day yan for us on a Saturday, as long as may ground rules yan. All right? Somebody has to cook. So we take turn. Okay? Somebody has to ganito. But at the rest of the day, whatever you do, as long as it's not excessive, it's your free day. And then Sunday is family time. I get to be invited to talk about, parenting. It's one of the things. No? And sinasabi ng, a lot of times people would tell me, kasi nakikilala na namin si Wait Lang. Kilala niyo si Wait Lang? Kinausap niya, anak, gawin mo ito, wait lang. Saka si Sandali lang, yan, nakikilala na raw. And the parents, given those reactions, sometimes would be agitated. Totoo naman, di ba? Pagka busy-busy ka tapos panay wait lang. Yung wait lang mo, hindi yung isang beses lang na wait lang. 4-5 beses ka na natawag. Wait lang ng wait lang. Okay? Parang gusto mo nang palitan yung pangalan ng anak mo at gawin mong wait lang. Okay? I think one of the things that we say, how do you control the gadget? How do you get on? One parents would say, I cut off the Wi-Fi connection. I have mobile data and that's what I use for work. So they can do, lalo na nung summer. It can work in a little time. But I definitely would guarantee you it would ripple into many forms of kindness, okay? Because cutting the Wi-Fi may give you a very brief solution for them not to so much binge watching, but it will not resolve the need. And what is the need? Perhaps look into your own family situation. If you want your children, puro ka na lang gadget, puro ka na lang gadget. Let's ask ourselves, are we on the gadget because we also work? And most of the time we do, then they need to understand. They need to understand. Na, ako, I minsan pag may mga ganong conversation with my kids, sabi ko, palagay niyo ba, gusto ko na nakaharap sa computer, 7 hours, 8 hours a day doing work? I don't think so. It's just that I have responsibilities, I have to make this done, etc., etc. So how can you come up with a resolution? Create a family ritual that is being kind to yourself, kind to your family members. Kasi whatever home situation we are, nag-overflow. Nag-overflow ito sa workspace. No? And may rule kayo, pag kumakain, no phone calls. And pati ikaw, pati ikaw. Your phone calls has to be in the living room. And put it on mute. Pag hindi mo naririnig yan, it will not bother you. Ang problema natin kasi, we're so attached to the gadget nowadays. No? So, like even dinner time or breakfast, kasi minsan hindi sabay, or lunch time, create that 1 hour of lunch or dinner as a way to communicate with each other. Kamusta ka na? Anong latest? Kahit magkwento siya ng walang kamatayang games niya, at least you're talking to each other. And sometimes, kahit hindi mo gusto, minsan may papanood din family night. Minsan kami movie night namin, we take turns in selecting the movies na online na papanood. Nung time na nung anak ko, addict siya dun sa Return of the Titan. There's a movie about it. And it was so horrible that when we heard about the title, we don't want it. Okay? But because there's a rule already, and then we have to sit, and then try to understand what it's all about, And sometimes if I don't understand it, so what does that mean? What does that mean? And it creates a conversation at kahit hindi ko naiintindihan kung ano yung sinasabi niya about this, ganito, ganyan, whatever it is. But yung conversation of wanting to listen to each other, okay, that is a very compassionate way of sharing kindness. And sometimes ganun din tayo sa friend, di ba? They might be ranting about certain things, no? That we don't know of and we're not understanding. But to patiently listen, pero pwera naman yung sumobla, you have to give an honest, good to goodness feedback. And it's an act of kindness as well. Kindness is grace. Okay. And one of the things we have to remember, we are all human. And therefore we make mistakes. Be kind to ourselves. Don't be too harsh. No? Ay, kamali ako eh. Okay. Our culture, the Filipino culture that we have a very strong sense of humor. And sometimes we laugh through the most uncomfortable situation when we made mistakes. No? Um, Very important. We're only human and we give ourselves slacks. No? It's not the end of the world. We make that mistake. So we made that mistakes. Again, what was wrong? Okay. What did I do wrong? What are the things that I failed to pay attention to? But what are the strengths that I did that sort of like mitigate the circumstances? And the magic question, if I were to go back again, what could I have done differently? So it's a pattern of thinking you always ask yourself so that you break away from the stigma of self-blame. Huwag na ganon, be kind to ourselves. Huwag mo nang dikdikin yung sarili mo, okay? Bumawi ka next time. We can also choose to be kind in our response to ourselves and others when they make mistakes, as we mentioned a while ago. Thinking before speaking, forgiving before seeking revenge, and thinking about the long-term relationship instead of a short-term pride. Okay. Easier said than done, right? Most often than not, sabi nga natin, if you are going to say, my lolo is very patient, okay? Ako, the other fiery part of me, I think sa lola ko. At sasabihin niya, kung nagagalit ka, refrain from speaking. If you're any upset situation, okay, you will do yourself good if you take a breather first, okay? Unleashing the anger would sometimes, kala mo temporary release. But sometimes it can create a ripple of wave of problems and issues. So you think before you speak, you know. When people say something that irritates you, you want to say that, you know, it irritates me. But the choice of words and the manner of saying it is very important, you know. Kung feeling mo, yabang-yabang naman ito, yayabang ganyan, and nonsense naman yung sinasabi, no? Again, you choose, you know, you choose to be kind when others may not be kind. Okay? So how do you do it, you know? Yeah, kagaya kanina example natin, yeah, might apply in other circumstances, pero itong pinag-uusapan nating situation might not be applicable. So we might probably need to further discuss. Okay? Forgiving before seeking revenge. I think when people do us wrong, the natural tendency, well, you know, we try to get back. Some people have mastered the art of self-refraining and are mature enough, no? When bad things have been done to them, they're able to retrospect, that's not my issue. You're angry about me, siniraan mo ako sa presentation ko, you always claim victory over the things that, you know, the team had created, you know. It's just posing it out, you know, but never to a point that you want to get back and do the same thing. Kung unkind siya, wag mong pabayaan na diktahan ka to be unkind by doing the same thing the other person is doing. Just call out the attention, choose the words that you have to say, get the meaning across, no? But stay away from the cycle. No? Kasi, well, that person might be in a bad space and then probably to be kind of, okay, breather muna tayo rather than talk, you know. And we think of, you know, yung sinasabi na long-term relationship, when things happen, you know, bad things happen in the workplace, with our colleagues, no? Is the relationship worth saving? Yan. Rather than unleashing all my anger and doing all of this stuff, no? And if it is, then sabi nga natin, don't burn bridges when you really intend to just clear the bridge. You know what I'm saying? So there are many rumbles, you know, blockage on the bridge. Don't burn it if your only intention is to clear that bridge, okay? So that the path can be more passable to you, all right? So keeping that in mind would help you think before you speak, you know, forgive before you put on, you know, a revenge cap on. And this is a grace way of being capable. And therefore, it leads us to the point of leading in kindness. Okay. So from top to bottom, bottom to top, leading with kindness is one of the most effective and optimizing organization performance building, no? In promoting people to be committed in the workplace, to creating a culture of kindness that is transformative in terms of not just looking at things as an obligation, all right, but as an inherent voluntary, intentional way of giving and being with others. You know? And therefore, 5 practices of humble and kind leadership, we say, we raise your hand when it's time to take responsibility. Brag, but not brag about yourself. Brag about others. The good things that they've done, the little things that they did well, the accomplishment. No, I know you have not slept. No, there might be some errors in it, but you submitted on time. Okay, so that means saying, give it a little slack. Okay, revise this a little bit more, but you did well in keeping up. Okay, combine passionate drive with humility. We can be passionate with all the things that we do, but always remember that humility is the key. You know, to encourage a lot of participation, to be consultative, to be with each other, you know, to help break away the culture of fear. Because kindness, transformative culture of kindness, will try to break the culture of fear, break away the culture of anxiety, and put into place, you know, courageously putting into place the things that you should be um, nurturing towards one another. Turn conversation not towards you all the time, but asking people how they are. You know, how is it on a good day? All right. So, with that, thank you very much and a pleasant good morning to everyone. Back to you, Jello.
Hi, Doc Joey. Thank you so much for your talk this morning. It was very insightful, and I was able to connect very well with everything you said. No, with most of the things you said. Um, you're right. I was able to take a few notes, and I what struck me the most that to awareness is very important to maintain that kindness habit. No, and if you always think about the well-being of others, its long-term effect on other people and even the culture in the community, diba? It can really go a long way. This cycle of kindness will be it's very contagious, diba? And hopefully that if we all do our best to propagate it in the community, then all our colleagues here will follow. And ma'am, I just like to ask, or maybe just elicit a response from you about given the pandemic and how much more important kindness is.
Mm,
Knowing that people, of course, are anxious, people are afraid even,
mm,
diba? People have so much
true.
on their minds. Hindi lang ako employee, I'm a parent, I'm a son who takes care of my
Mm,
parents, diba?
mm,
So why is it more important now more than ever? Of course, before pre-pandemic,
right.
it's important to be kind. But
Mm,
why now? But why more now than ever?
mm. I think, Jello, what you have been describing is generally the feeling of most of the population right now, because we have multiple roles, di ba? We're not only employees at the same time, we're family members, you know, you're a brother, you're a son, you're a tito, you're a cousin, you know. And given this pandemic situation, the thing that we have to consider to exercise kindness to the fullest is that each person has a different context. Okay, not because you're doing okay, that means to say the other person is doing okay also. Doesn't mean that you are, you know, resilient. You expect every single person to be
That's
resilient.
resilient, yeah.
Yeah. Not because you're performing despite, di ba, the pandemic situation, that would mean, you know, you have to perform as well. Okay. I think the kindness there would come into us by understanding and accepting that each one of us have a very different context that we achieve in. And because we have very different context, kasi before pre-pandemic, we're all in the office eh, tama? And because
Mm.
we're all in the office, generically speaking, meron tayong mga baggages that we bring along with us, but the work environment is okay, you have a laptop, air-conditioned room, you have a space to do, you have a pantry where you want to go. So there is a space, no, for you to do all of that. But given the situation now, some people, some of our employees, some of our co-workers don't even have a corner in the house, to have a silent place to work. We have many students, we have many students who would come to us and say na, Ma'am, pwede po ba na can I request for a recording na lang because there are 4 of us in the dining area and the house is very little. At simultaneous po yan, hindi po na kami magkarinigan. Alright? So people who might come to you and say, sir, I cannot meet the deadline right now given the connectivity, etc., etc. It's not rationalizing. It's different from rationalizing. But I guess it's understanding. Pay attention to the context of the person. And sometimes understanding, ano ba yung sitwasyon sa bahay? Probably our HR can find ways and means to help you with. Alright. So I think, importante, given this pandemic right now, each one of us have different narratives because each one of us have a different context. And we cannot impose because we are the ones not experience any of those, challenges. So it's very, very important that knowing and accepting na iba-iba ang pinanggagalingan natin gives us the understanding to be more attentive. Okay?
Right, ma'am. There's a saying, we may all be in the same storm, but we are all not in the same boat.
Exactly.
Diba? May kanya-kanya tayong konteksto pinanggagalingan. And we have to respect that. So thank you, ma'am. And this morning, ma'am, I also have a co-panelist. Her name is Melody Doliente. She's a project engineer from the PDU. So, hi, Melody. Good morning.
Hi, Melody. Good morning.
Is she frozen? Parang.
Connectivity. Yeah. Akala ko si Melody kanina. Hi, Melody.
Hi, Melody.
Hello po.
Hi. So would you have a comment or a question perhaps this morning?
Actually, very insightful yung talk ni Ma'am Kimberly. More on yun nga, kung di ba po yung kindness is more on na-enrich siya eh. So, more on sa source. So, for some people po kasi, di ba, they are not surrounded by or raised in a kind of environment. So how do people be kind if they were not raised in a kind environment or doesn't or is not surrounded by, diba, by loving people or understanding people or considering?
I think this is where your social system comes in. All right, the social system comes in. That's the reason why the work, if you are a student, your work, the school social environment is very important. Okay, support system. If you are in a workplace, that's the reason why we promulgate kindness. A culture of kindness, because for people who have been raised in an environment where there is culture of fear, violence, they don't know, most probably. They're not aware. Lalo na kung lumaki sila, nabubuli pa sila, and then people are mostly unkind to them. If you create a culture of kindness in the workplace that you have, slowly you are providing an educational mode to the person to observe and learn. Because, behavior are often observed, nakikita ito, okay, felt, nararamdaman, okay, or tinuturo, seminar, cognitive infusion. But most often than not, if we create a ripple of kindness among each other, okay, it would be an opportunity. Kasi minsan may iba, di ba, yung pagiging basher, yung pagiging basher, di ba, normal normal. Hindi talaga, ganun na yung personality kasi most probably, ganun yung wavelength na kinalakihan. By doing the words, by paying attention to the words that you say, you want to convey the meaning, you want to convey what you want to say, but then choosing the right manner to say it, and with choice of words, that would educate the person. That would help create a culture of kindness. So, wag yung pag binash ka, bash mo pabalik. It's a never-ending cycle of bashing. All right? So, sabi nga nila, how do you um, cut the fire? It's by water. You don't fight the fire with fire because it's gonna burn the whole world. How do you fight fire? It's by pouring water over fire. And being kind is pouring water over that hot water or fire. Okay?
Thank you, ma'am.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Melody. And also, Doc Joey, thank you so much. Your talk is so timely given, of course, the pandemic, our different contexts, and the high stress scenario, not just we in Joy Nostalg face, but I think
Everywhere.
anyone in the workforce is
Mm.
facing right now. No? So I think it would be very helpful for everyone to simply be kind to one another. Simply take into consideration how people are feeling, na iba-iba yung situation natin lahat, di ba? Kahit na high stress na, gipit sa oras, gipit sa resource, or what have you, the most important thing to do is to treat one another with respect and dignity here in the company. And I really thank Doc Joey for reminding us of that, to always choose to be kind. So once again, Doc Joey, it's a pleasure to have you with us. And we hope that we can have you soon with us again here in Joy Nostalg. So thank
My
you, Doc.
pleasure. Thank you very much for
Thank you,
having
Doc.
me and a fun-filled morning. I know it's raining, but I think after this talk, a few minutes, sit back and relax and enjoy a few minutes of relaxation mode. So thank you very much, Jello. It's always like home when I'm with everyone. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Doc. Thanks, Miss Melody. And everyone, the attendance sheet is in the chat box. So please stay kind, be kind to one another, and stay safe. Thanks, everyone. Bye now.